Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Gershon with another Endeavor Better Health webinar and podcast. I am thrilled to be here today with a real visionary, someone with an incredible technical background as well as a real vision and mission driven focus on improving healthcare. Mohamed El Beheiry is here today to talk to you about the next generation of 3D virtual reality, which I believe is revolutionizing surgical guidance. Today is really an incredible pivot point for the company, and he will talk to you about that journey and his experiences, this incredible team with a vision to really reshape surgical guidance. But first, I really want to thank everyone who's attended over these past many months the Endeavor Better Health webinar and podcast series. We now have about 1.4 million views. We're getting term sheets and deals in an effort to increase collaboration and partnership between incredible entrepreneur founders, emerging companies who have, like Mohamed, a real vision and mission to take part in reshaping the healthcare system using the integration of advanced technologies into outstanding large enterprises. That collaboration and partnership is at the center of what we do at Endeavor, and it's part of what we're trying to do and build out in our platform here as an open source platform to promote collaboration and partnership in a real collegial way to be able to sustain and grow companies in an era of economic stress. So with that, I just want to take a few moments really to, introduce a real visionary, Mohamed El Beheiry. He is here today as the CTO and co-founder of Avatar Medical. So Mohamed, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I am thrilled to hear more about your personal journey, the focus and the vision of the company, and the new partnerships and collaboration that are spurring growth.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Martin, for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm also thrilled to be able to talk about aspects of the journey and what we're doing as a company and our mission collectively. We're a young startup. We're a French company with a big American presence right now. So we're a French-American company, as we say. And in the past almost 3.5 years now, we've done a whole number of different things and related to improving patient outcomes, improving the life of surgeons by using our technology. The way I see things, I'm the CTO, so I might get into some tech talk discussions, but I'm going to maybe try to keep it very high level. But we're working using this new generation of immersive displays. So we're talking virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, these kind of things. And in the healthcare sector, there's a realization that these types of technologies, they will be essential in the patient care workflow. And the reason why is the information that these technologies bring allow for very clear benefits. We've done a number of studies using these technologies, and we've shown that for surgeons, for understanding the content of medical images, for training, for education and patient engagement, there are very, very clear benefits. They're very unambiguous. And we're, as Avatar Medical, we're on the forefront of bringing these technologies to a wider audience in the hospital. The integration of new technologies in the hospital, the adoption is sometimes a slow process, and it requires some disruption, some taking of risks, convincing hospital administrators, of the benefits of this technology, and we're really facing that. That's what we've been doing for the past few years, and we've had quite a bit of success, quite a bit of traction related to this on a whole number of different topics. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about this over the course of the next 30 minutes or so.
Fantastic. Welcome. And I know personally we've talked about some of the incredible things over the past few months that the company has been doing. Like with most things, it's all about the people. Taking a vision and shaping that requires a real team. And you have really an outstanding team. So perhaps we can start. I think you put together a slide deck as a visual cue for some of this. Perhaps I can pull that up now.
Yeah, let's do it. The team it's a critical aspect. In fact, when I talk about Avatar Medical and the journey that we've been on, there's I see it as three components that are really motivating and really core to what we're doing, and it's very high level. I mean, there's one aspect. It's the mission. I mean, what mission are we on? What are we trying to do at Avatar Medical? What problems are we solving? So it's like, front and center. The team is just as important. You have to have a team of people that share that mission, that objective. And I've been really fortunate over the development of the company. Myself and the other co-founders, we have we just have this fantastic synergy, and the people that have joined the company afterwards, we're very much very aligned, and it's that alignment. It's what allows us to face the challenges, and to revel in the successes as well. And that's one of the big enablers of our success. It's something not to be underestimated. The team is more than just someone that knows what to do, this skill or that skill. It's really about solidarity. That when we're faced with a challenge, we try to find the positive side of it. There's no in the startup adventure. Things that could be otherwise perceived as as failures or difficulties, that notion in a startup, it should be avoided in a way, because in every challenge and every difficulty there's a positive a framing that you can have. And with our team, we all share that kind of vision, and it's been one of the enablers of our success. We don't get too down, if we're not if we face a certain challenge, and we don't get too high, if we face an accomplishment. We have a mission, to go back to the mission part, and where our goal is, we're all aligned in achieving this mission. And the other aspect I would mention, that's very important, from the solidarity aspect, the team solidarity, but also relating to the mission, is the feats that you have, the accomplishments as a startup company, because these are big moments. These are things that trigger change in the company, and the change in a good way. So it can be the scaling of the company, it could be the realization, okay, that maybe there's a new direction we can go. Maybe we have these new contacts, maybe we start a new collaboration. So feats is these, I was struggling to find the right word, but I think feats, what I mean by that is just like these milestones that you hit. And this is really one of the big motivating factors when for like when I see the developments in Avatar Medical. So it's very high level. It's very maybe a bit simplified, but these are one of the things that are like the sources of my passion and the passion of the people at Avatar Medical. So Martin, what I'll do is I'll jump into talking about the mission, because this is how the company basically started. It was a mission that was defined over the course of a project that I was working on as a postdoctoral researcher in Paris, France, and it kind of things kind of accumulated, came together, and allowed and it led to the creation of the company. So I'll talk a bit about that. The purpose of the presentation is, yeah, again, I'm the CTO, but I'm going to try to avoid talking about the technology too much. I think what I really want to communicate is, okay, what in this use case of Avatar Medical, what was inspirational, what led to this creation of the company, and how have we managed, in this tough environment. There's the current economic environment, and also just being in the medical space. There's a lot of baked in challenges, baked in obstacles, and how have we managed across that. So I'll jump in right now, and I'll talk about the first I guess topic that we have here. Okay, the mission. Like, how did this start at Avatar Medical, and yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about like I'll first start a bit about my background actually. So myself, I have an interesting background, a quite like diverse background. I've lived in quite a few different places. I'm originally I'm from Canada, and uh, and I did my training over there, and I've gone through. I've lived and studied in many different places. Right now, I currently live in France, and the journey. It seems maybe like when you look at it like this, maybe it's a bit incoherent, but for me, at least in my head, it's it's very obvious, like where I've gone. In the beginning, in this little schematic that I have here, I mean, I did my training as an electrical engineer at the University of Waterloo. So it's a big technical school just outside of Toronto, and it was there where I kind of gained this passion towards technology, and how do things work. You gain this obsession with, okay, how do things work? How can you make devices in this very applied sense that have a very interesting use case? Um, it was during this phase where I started doing addressing topics related to biomedical engineering, and I did a master's in biomedical engineering at the University of Toronto. I always felt, a connection to the medical realm because I'm in a family, I guess, where I'm the only one who's not, a medical a doctor somehow. So I was in these very fortunate circumstances, and I felt that, okay, it was maybe subconsciously that I kind of drifted. I was kind of migrating um, uh, uh, towards topics related to medicine. In the beginning, I was working on biosensors. So this is what I was doing in Toronto. So we're just developing these nano fabricated sensors, these photonic crystal sensors that are very very neat from a physics perspective, to be able to detect antibodies, or sorry, antigens rather, in microfluidic chambers. So this was a very interesting adventure, very interesting endeavor where I was doing electromagnetic simulations, and it was maybe the seeds of my current maybe obsession, unhealthy obsession with data visualization, where how do you actually visualize electromagnetic fields, and how does that visualization help us understand the operation of a device. So I was working on that. It was like an excellent project. I got to touch on like every aspect. I was in clean rooms. I was doing simulations. I was using these devices in an experimental setting. At the time, and yeah, it was a really great adventure. But it kind of gave me as I was saying, this motivation to want to do more things related to software, complex data visualization, because the data that we were handling here, it's complicated data, and it's not easy to interpret for the outsider. And this is a consistent theme through everything that I've done in my career. It's this idea of making complicated data a bit easier to understand. And that was the case when I moved to France, where I did a PhD in physics. Specifically, I was working on a biophysical topic, which is a single particle tracking. And the idea here is that you can track in the individual trajectories of molecules inside a living cell. And the images that you can generate, the movies that you can generate here are absolutely beautiful. They're really stunning, where you see individual molecules moving around in a cell, um, and in real time. So you see exactly how life looks like at this nanoscopic scale, live. And the when you're in this world, in this physical world, the rules, of that we have in our scale of a life, they don't apply these Newtonian rules. They kind of break down when you're at that physical scale, and the environment is so different. Most of what you're seeing, in terms of these molecular trajectories, are random thermal agitations, and you're trying to understand, okay, how does this all this randomness translate to the functioning of a biological system. And this is where, this is the topic that I was basically working on, doing this PhD, was trying to translate the idea of these trajectories into parameter maps. Understand, okay, how random are these trajectories, and are there specific interactions taking place? Because there is a consensus in biology today that it's these specific interactions that give rise to larger biological signaling processes. So I developed a few software applications at the time. So it was kind of um, uh, it was kind of I was basically doing the things that I loved. It was just I was generating this data, and I was developing applications that understand it. And in the applications that we did, and this was with my supervisors at the time, clearly. Um, we develop applications where we can understand what's going on, how random are these trajectories, and where are the interactions taking place, and allows us to infer information, really important information about these signaling processes. And that was just a real adventure, and it was really it was really great. I was really motivated by this topic, and it led to the next topic, which was this idea of 3D microscopy of single molecule trajectories, or just single molecule static single molecules, because the I was fortunate to be doing my PhD at a time where these 3D microscopy techniques for single molecule imaging were becoming prevalent. And it's really incredible when you think about it, is that we're capable now of visualizing molecules in a 3D living cell, and to be able to visualize what these molecules are doing in 3D. Traditionally, microscopy in this context was done in 2D, and you had all these new microscopes coming out that allowed us to do this 3D visualization. And in this schematic here, it's one of the microscopes that was in part developed in the group that I was in. So it's a multi-focus microscope. So you're seeing a matrix of 9 planes, and each one corresponds to a different focal plane inside a living cell. And from that, you can do these 3D, these really nice 3D reconstructions of the organelles inside the cell. And this was another topic. It was like, okay, I have all this complicated data. How do I make sense of it? How do I make it understandable to the observer, the scientist? And this was, one of the large parts of one of the big motivating factors. And we developed a software to visualize this as well. And it led to a number of different publications with some very big research groups, in fact, in the US and in France. And we achieved something really actually remarkable, in the sense that this idea of taking the complicated data and making it understandable, and actually being able to to validate or invalidate hypotheses, is a very critical ingredient. And as a researcher, that's basically in large part what you're doing. You have a question about whatever system that you're dealing with, and you develop a hypothesis. And what you want to do is you want to kind of um, generate a hypothesis. That's one thing, but you also want to see, is it valid or is it invalid? And if it's invalid, why is it invalid? And the visualization aspect, it's so key to it. It's sometimes hard to formulate exactly why. Why is visualization so important? Because it's very qualitative, but it's something that I really took to heart. And it was something that I realized that, you know um, I stumbled upon something that really, really that I was really passionate about, and it led to the next topic that I addressed in my career, and this was after my PhD as a postdoctoral um, a fellow. This was at the Institut Pasteur and the Institut Curie in Paris, France. So these are big research institutes in France, where we were tackling a different type of data set, which is more of these larger microscopy data sets in 3D. So we were dealing with confocal microscopy, a light sheet microscopy, and this type of data. And this data was enormous, extremely detailed, extremely dense. It was beautiful data, but there was this big void in how do we understand this data? How do we visualize it? How do we make sense of it? And over the course of a few years during this postdoc project, which was in basically what was an innovation project that was defined between the two institutes. I led the development of a software application that could handle this type of data and allow us to truly visualize it in 3D. And this is another topic. So this leads into why are we doing VR, and why are we doing more XR more broadly speaking, is that to visualize data in 3D, you need stereoscopy. Okay, so stereoscopy is this idea of having a vision that corresponds to how your eyes see the real world. And when you visualize something in a stereoscopic view, you immediately see the 3D aspect. You immediately see which structures are in front of or behind in what you're visualizing, and it allows this heightened intuition of the data set that you're visualizing. And at the time, this was at the time when the first VR headsets were coming out, by the headsets from Oculus, the headsets from HTC were coming out, and we developed some software to be able to visualize this, and it allowed us just to really understand what was going on. And there were quite a few topics relating to neurobiology, and that's what you see in the image capture here, where we're looking at the entire hippocampus of the mouse. And you see, the difference in looking at a 2D image here and looking at it in 3D. Maybe it's not so clear in this image here, but the insight is really interesting. And
So, I'm not sure which slide you're on here, but just what we have here is the first slide, so it hasn't moved
okay, okay.
from
Is
that.
it the is it
I'm
the
not
slide
sure.
4?
No,
It hasn't. Okay,
yeah,
interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
So, yeah,
do you see my? Yeah,
yeah. I just see that first slide.
okay, because I see in the feed it says before Avatar Medical is at the title of the slide. I see that
Yes,
displayed
yes,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. No, that's the slide that I'm on. So,
Okay,
yeah, no, I'm just stepping through these things here. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for mentioning that, Martin. So, I think we're good though with the slides.
great.
The idea here is, yeah, it's just with the the overview here, like what I want to mention as well, related to this aspect here, is that this is a very complicated data set that we have here. And handling complicated data in a rudimentary way is something that we'd like to avoid. And it also, these topics related to VR visualization of dense microscopy data, it also triggered an interest with myself and within my the head of the lab that I was working in, related to AI. How can we make this a bit simpler to use, simpler to understand? Here, if we want to see these individual neurons, are we going to look at them one by one, or are we going to analyze them one by one, or is there a way we can analyze them in batch? So this AI component, it's not a big topic in this presentation, but it is. We're doing AI in Avatar Medical, and this was kind of the seeds of that. And here it's just a little panel of the different software that we developed, and it's a software that we developed to a large community of researchers, and it's something that really um, inspired myself personally for the adventure that became Avatar Medical. Okay, so I'll switch to the next topic. During the while I was developing this project, this VR project, in as a postdoctoral researcher, there was a lot of prototyping, and this is where a lot of the excitement, about entrepreneurship comes. Because one of the key ingredients, unless you're a very well known entrepreneur, um, you need a prototype. You need a prototype. You need to demonstrate. Okay, what are you proposing exactly? Um, how can this be used? Having something tangible to show is really important. And I had a lot of freedom to be able to do this. I was very fortunate in this regard. And this shows basically a chronology of what the kind of stuff that we were doing to visualize microscopy data and some medical data at the time. So we had a stereoscopic viewer here. We did some prototypes with augmented reality with the Microsoft HoloLens. We did even some 2D, or we did some 3D viewing on camera phones. We had interfaces to manipulate imaging data, movies actually in this VR context. We did some AR visualization with the 3D models, and we were tracking this here. And of course, we had this VR framework to visualize certain single molecule data, and it was part of it's part of what is the motivation, as someone as an entrepreneur, is to develop prototypes, to get that feedback, to get these quick iteration cycles, to understand, okay, what's cool about what you're doing, and what's maybe something that's been overlooked and that you should take a look at. And this was a lot of this experimental, this incubation phase. It was some very exciting moments. And what was interesting as well was just to face some realities as well, right? I'm the type of person that when you get feedback that's negative, it's useful. There's a lot of sayings that say, if you have negative feedback, I mean, there's something to learn from. Positive feedback, it's an ego boost, but it's maybe not the most. Maybe there's not too many learnings from it. And we realized that when we were developing this project here in the context of microscopy, image visualization, and in VR, there was a lot of different use cases. There were a lot of Everyone wanted something a bit different, and that's implicit when as a researcher, every researcher is doing something a bit different. And developing software for microscopy images, it was fun. It was cool to see the reaction of people, but as something that could be, the potential seed of a startup company, it would be very challenging, and it's just because of these aspects. I mentioned that this project, it was done in the in both the Institut Pasteur, so it's the Pasteur Institute, and the Institut Curie, the Curie Institute. And the Curie Institute in Paris, it's an institute that's very well known for its cancer hospital. And what we did there for the Curie Institute was was really great, because we basically had this opportunity to show it to a whole number of different users. So here we're just seeing an example of visualizing some microscopy data in this VR setting, and we're basically just tagging different nuclei inside. I believe it's an embryo actually. There's a mouse embryo, and what we realized, when we're visualizing this stuff in this VR context, it's there is this wow effect that occurs. Okay, and the challenge was always, okay, how do you harness this wow effect? How do you make it something that is useful concretely for the user? And in the microscopy context, it was every time we loaded someone's data, there was this wow effect. But in the end, as I was saying, the structuring, an entrepreneurship project around this, there were some fundamental questions that made it a bit challenging. But as I mentioned, at the Curie Institute, there is a hospital. Okay, so this is a big cancer hospital in Paris. They have thousands of patients every single year, and through a whole series of different connections, we eventually met people that were very receptive to this technology in the context of medical imaging. So basically, what I did, again, prototyping, we took some medical images, we loaded them into our system, and we visualized them with some breast cancer surgeons at the Institut Curie. And when we did this, there was this wow effect, but it was much deeper, because there is this healthcare context where the impact that you're having on these surgeons when they're visualizing medical images in VR, the impact it extends to patients. It's not just to have a nice research paper, about some biological process. It's really there is an impact that we can infer from just being able to better understand the medical image. And these are just a whole series of quotes that we overheard when we were demoing our technology there at the Institut Curie. And this is before our company was even created. It was just an innovation project that we had
Well,
there.
this is a great point, and maybe a pivot point, because we are actually coming up on time here. Um, so really, you know, eh, in from my perspective, the most important aspect of a startup is to commercialize products. And then once you commercialize that product, it's really up to patients and doctors, industry partners, to value that innovation by use cases, as you talked about. So perhaps, this is an incredible story. It's an incredibly detailed story about transitioning from being a scientist to a business person, listening to people, partnering within now a clinical setting in a hospital. I'd love to kind of fast forward
Yep.
to the clinical applications. You have advanced the technology since this early stage inception. I'd like to move right into that for the sake of time here,
Excellent. Yeah.
because that really is where, the incredible story begins.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So going into there, I mean, just yeah. So yeah, like just just to follow up on that, Martin. So the idea is that what we've done with the technology is we basically developed a way to visualize MRIs. So what you see here, it was MRIs in the beginning, and then we work heavily with CT scans today. And the idea is that visualizing these types of images in VR, it allows us to see information that's very, very difficult to perceive otherwise. And here we have an example of a breast MRI. We are interacting with it in this VR context. We create what we call an avatar of the patient. And this was, the key factor for the creation of. This was the key use case that led to the creation of the company. And the idea is that when we use our technology in this context, there's huge advantages for the surgeon because fundamentally it takes 10 years of training to understand a medical image, 10 years being the time that it takes to train a radiologist, at least 10 years, and or in the range of 10 years. And the idea is when you visualize it in this 3D context, this 3D stereoscopic context, things are understood easily. They just jump out at you in detail. And it's not just the visualization aspect; it's this idea of retaining the information that's been visualized. And this is kind of the workflow that we see in the hospital. And there's a lot of strain between the radiologist and the surgeon in the clinical setting, and it is a very challenging. There's a lot of challenges in this workflow, and it's because there's not enough radiologists, at least in Western Europe, and there's not many surgeons that actually follow a radiology training. So our technology basically inserts itself between the radiologist and the surgeon. And one of the key distinguishing factors of our technology is that we are software designed for non-radiologists. Although radiologists, they can use the technology if they like, but software for radiologists radiologists are very technical. Surgeons they're very technical, very interested in pixel by pixel detail. Surgeons, the surgery profession, it's a mechanical profession. They want to see things in 3D and better understand this, and they don't need all the options that you have available in a 3D software, in a radiology software. And that's where we bring a difference. We allow the surgeon to basically understand the data in a very, very intuitive and easy way. It's just a few clicks to get to the visualization of the patient that we want. We can connect directly to the hospital IT infrastructure and query the patient data, the PACS of the hospital, and see it. And what we are, in a way, is an alternative to the visual supports that we have for surgery today, which resemble this. A lot of it's just sketching and things like this. And this is how surgeons communicate, to their teams and also to their patients, what's going to happen in their surgery. And what we see ourselves is an alternative to this. It's a modern way, and it's a much more a more accurate way in terms of the presentation of the data to show the patients what is going on and how they're going to be operated on, and also for communication within the team. And it leads to basically the mission, the fundamental mission of our company, which is to offer these types of 3D patient-specific visualizations to surgeons and patients in real time, where they want it, when they want it. So and we hold a number of collaborations. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to go through these a bit quicker. So that's basically the mission of the company. I talked a bit about the team. We have an incredible team, and I'm so fortunate with respect to this. It took a long time to find everyone involved in the team, and we're very much aligned. And what you see in the top left are the 5 co-founders of the company. We all have complementary skill sets, and that's a very, very critical thing. Why is it critical? It's because we see blind spots when we're making a decision. Everyone has a different perspective, and to be able to challenge each other and choose the right make the right decision, the best decision, it is invaluable. You can't do it alone in a startup, in the entrepreneurship world, and we realize that really quickly. So we're all together, we're all aligned. This is how the company looks like today. So in the beginning, we were just 5, and now we're about 25. And we're a very diverse team, which is also really important. Diversity is something that we heavily encourage across all aspects. Diversity in gender, diversity in people from different parts of the world. We're a French American company, but we're also people from many different nationalities in the company, and it just injects into this culture that we've developed. So I'll finish perhaps just talking about some of the feats, Martin, and we can go from there. What are the feats? So the feats are the accomplishments that we've had. So what we realized with our technology and the studies that we've done with Avatar is that 15% of the surgeons in the vascular context, they'll change their approach when using our technology. And this is critical. In vascular surgery, there's this big option between, do you do an open surgery or a endovascular surgery. And this is a big decision for the patient, everyone involved. There's a big monetary consequence as well. In the oncology context, we realize surgeons using our technology, they're 4 times faster in analyzing these medical images, and we upscale residents and junior surgeons. So junior surgeons that use our technology, they perform just as good as their senior colleagues. So it's almost like a cheat code, our technology, and that was something that was really motivational, really that we're really proud of. And you see some of the collaborations that we have in this regard with the surgical planning. The patient engagement topic, it's something that it's just equally passionate for us, because a lot of people may think from the outset, maybe the patient doesn't want to see their medical images. Maybe that'll stress them out. Maybe that maybe it's a ignorance is bliss kind of thing. They don't want to know. What studies have shown is that, in fact, it's the opposite. Patients, they don't understand a lot of what the doctor is telling them. And if you have a visual support and an immersive, easy to understand visual support, it makes a huge difference. It can reduce their anxiety. It can improve their understanding of what's going to happen to them. And it can improve their acceptance of the surgery and the conversion rates. So we're really pushing that today. And our solution is perfectly balanced to address patients as well as surgeons. So it's something that's like one of those beautiful kind of discoveries that we've had along the way, was this. The benefits for the hospital in using our technology, and more high level in terms of the infrastructure of how the healthcare systems work, are very obvious using our technology. Through this patient engagement aspect, we can anticipate a higher patient retention, more revenue from surgeries because we'll be able to handle more patients. So we're working on really quantifying this right now. Reduce litigation risk, as we're reducing the risk for all the people involved. Surgeons better visualize the images, and patients are less anxious about what's going on, and they understand things better. And also this idea of improved efficiency. So fundamentally, our technology and why we've had so much success, it's a productivity tool. It helps us understand things better and quicker. And finally, I want to talk about the education aspect, and this is something that's also really, one of the big sources of passion in our technology. We have about 5 education clients today, and what we've realized is that visualizing medical images with our technology, it's almost as equivalent as using as a cadaver lab. And the cadaver labs are very complicated, very expensive. I think they're still necessary, of course, for training medical students. But this in itself is a big realization that, okay, perhaps virtual visualization of medical images can offer a whole number of benefits. And finally, what's really great, seeing the young medical students using our technology, it's just the satisfaction rates. It's almost unanimous. It's basically unanimous. They love the technology. The idea of looking at grayscale medical images and actually making lively, impressive patient avatars in this virtual immersive context, it goes a long way to understanding. And also strategically, it goes to the earlier point I was saying, is that these XR immersive visualization technologies, they're going to have their place in the hospital. It is very obvious. It's for the benefits that I mentioned in the previous slides. If you want to improve medical image education, you have to pass by these technologies. It just makes things so much easier to understand, and it also, the students, they're passionate about it. And we've had more than 1,000 students use our technology in the context of practical work during their medical education, and we're only getting traction in this field. And finally, I just want to finish, Martin, just talking about some of the endorsements that we've had. We've had a whole number of successes, and this is because of the hard work that we've put in, and it is like just a testament, to having the great team, a very clear mission, and just to have this a very coherent, and shared idea of, okay, what we're doing is useful, it's important in healthcare, and we're making a real difference. And it just shows the kind of the fruits of the labor of our labor, and yeah, it's something that that each one of us in the company, we're just we wake up every day and we're just super excited about this, and we're going to continue in this direction, and yeah, we're going to make an impact on how surgeons, patients, they interpret medical images, and how the difference can be made, how we can make a difference in the surgical planning, surgical guidance, patient education, and just medical student education field, more broadly speaking. Okay, so
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, I could talk with you for hours about this. Uh, we are out of time, but I can't impress upon the listeners the power of this technology. And it is very much, as Mo was saying, the ability to take complex data, information, and dial it down into user friendly, user facing, whether it's surgeon or patient facing interfaces, is very challenging. And I will say that this is probably the tip of the iceberg. I would expect that integration between education, which is one of the key pieces at the end of the discussion here today, and the applicability means that if you are being trained as a medical student, as an intern, as a resident, as a fellow, using this technology is going to spark a curious part of your thinking. How can I use it? How can I make it better? This is what's exciting about the next generation of patient advocates. And I say that because historically, physicians have been people who listen, diagnose, and treat. But I do think in the next phase of education, patient advocacy, in partnership with not only illness centers, hospitals, but also wellness centers, is going to be an important part of what we see in healthcare. I see this imaging platform extending out into wellness as a preventative diagnostic tool where people can begin to look at their wellness status. I also see this as a possible tracking mechanism for disease progression or an evaluation of how well medications are doing, since we now know we have real time capability on the molecular level of looking at tissue. So, as an oncologist and immunologist, I see this as a fascinating story, which really is only limited by the creative powers of healthcare providers, healthcare advocates. And that's why I'm so excited about Avatar, because this bringing together a very interesting, diverse scientists, business leaders, researchers, opens up the doors for discussion. So I would urge everybody, please contact Mo, contact myself if you have ideas for collaboration and partnerships. I also want to take this time to thank many people who have dialed in today. Jenny, once again, just by our side through this journey as our director of leadership. Thank you for dialing in today. Abraham from Nigeria, Harvey, who will be on next week. Please dial in to watch Harvey Castro talk about AI and the impact it has on physicians. Thank you for dialing in from Texas. And Mo, thank you so much for spending this time talking about a multi-year passion of yours. And I hope to have you back soon for follow-up as the company begins to grow and expand, particularly here in the United States.
Great. Thank you so much, Martin. It was a pleasure, and I'm happy to continue the discussion.
Fantastic. Mo, hang on for a second. I'm going to say so long to everyone here, and we can talk in the green room. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon. Please tune in next week for an incredible discussion with Harvey Castro, an incredible physician, published author, teacher, and more. He's going to talk to you about the impact that AI has on physicians' treatment, way of thinking, and their connection to patients.